In 1754, the Seven Years' War began, and a lot happened throughout the time of the 7 Years' War, but in this video we're just going to focus on the beginning of the war. The 7 Years' War was fought by nations all over the world, and it was fought in locations all over the world, so many historians actually consider this to be the first World War. We can call it World War Zero. In the decades after the Treaty of Utrecht, there was still a lot of disputed land in North America, and so that led to a lot of conflict between the French and the British trying to figure out who was going to control that land. Not to mention the First Nations, who were like, we've been here the whole time, so just saying. This was largely an economic war. At the time, countries wanted to sell their resources and the goods that they were producing, such as tea, to other countries for their gold, and at the same time, not buy a lot of resources from other countries so that they could amass more gold in their own country. In order to achieve this, you needed access to a lot of resources, and North America seemed at the time to be an untapped wealth of resources. It was full of timber, beaver pelts, and all sorts of other things that people were buying up like crazy in Europe. In order to control the resources in North America at the time, you had to have forts built in strategic places so that you could maintain control. And so the French and the British are constantly battling each other for control of different forts in the area. And two of the notable battles at the time were the battle for the fortress of Louisbourg, which the British had captured from the French years earlier, but then gave it back to the French, and then at this battle they came and reclaimed it again. In 1754, the French built Fort Duquesne, which was in a super strategic area and everybody wanted it, including the British. So the governor of Virginia sent George Washington, future first president of the United States, to capture it. But the French, alongside with warriors from First Nations, including the Shawnee, Delaware, and Seneca nations, responded with such overwhelming force that the British could not capture it, and the British were forced to leave the area. But they tried and attacked again and again. And in 1758, were finally able to capture the fort. And as I said before, the French and the British both wanted these strategically placed forts so that they could control some land. And they wanted that land so that they could get the resources from it. And one specific piece of land, which was extremely rich in resources and therefore the source of a lot of conflict as they battled trying to control, was the Ohio Valley. And if you've ever seen the opening sequence from the Leo DiCaprio movie The Revenant, then you really have a great way to visualize what it could have been like while different nations were trying to control the land. And so this covers a lot of the factors leading up to the 7 Years' War as it applies to North America. Remember, there's still a war going on all over the world, many different locations with many different battles with many different countries involved, but we're just focusing on how it affected North America. As the war progresses, there's a lot to cover, and so we'll see you in the next one where we talk about some of that.